and you talk like this.
Okay, cool.
Like you're eating a hot dog.
I know, I've done it before.
I know you have.
Got this agenda for you to follow.
I know, I jump all over the place. I've already, look at this, I've already added things in the mix that aren't going to be on here.
Okay, so anyway,
And we can
think we
record
said
this, we're all cool.
Well, we are. We're going to have to change some things around during your break. I have to take my transmitter and put it on your computer so she can do her thing. And then the only thing
I believe you, I'm so glad I'm not in the
Yeah.
chat.
well, I'm
I
not either.
purposely elect not to be.
I'm not either. The recording is going to be a little bit different because of that, but it'll still work.
Yes. Yes, hi, I've communicated. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, good to
Welcome.
meet you. Thank you.
We could
Did you get our donation?
I think so.
Okay.
$1 million?
Was it recent?
$1 million?
Yes, remember we had a fundraiser at our club and we used
Yes.
you as our nonprofit
Yes, I
recipient.
remember that.
Okay,
This
I'm
was a while
following
back
up.
then.
It was last month, yes.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that from our treasurer.
Okay, good. All
But it's
right, so
under
good.
the
Correct. Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Is the mic working? Everybody's got a chair? Okay. Sometimes I act like I'm racing through meetings. If it appears that I do that today, just hang on, okay? Because I will be racing. Don't say slow down, just say speak up. Thank you all and good afternoon for coming. We're going to start the meeting, and we're all going to have to first stand to do the pledge. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and if you're a new member or a visitor, could you remain standing? Oh, I just love the 2 mics. Can you hear me on this mic? Okay, let's first ask you your name and what brought you to WVGS. I've been talking with you earlier.
Barb Sims, and my friend Kay brought me. She's the one that introduced me. I've been interested in genealogy, but just joined this year.
Yeah, I've got her lined up with all kinds of things. I told her she'll be so addicted within 6 weeks. Hi, Cindy Myers and Doug, yes. What brought you to WVGS?
I have been interested in genealogy for a long time, and I joined Ancestry and was able to dig a lot of information up, but I know that there's a lot I don't know and a lot I don't have, so I was real happy to find the genealogy office, and we joined.
Oh, welcome. And you? Are you doing genealogy or just helping her?
Mostly helping her.
What about your own? What about your own?
I was lucky enough to have an aunt who was into doing all this, so my side of the family pretty well is as far back as it's going to get.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. I still think it's not fair when you have a relative that's done this much stuff and they just hand it to you. Oh my God. Hi, you're visiting or you're a new member?
I'm a new member.
Oh wow, what's your name?
My name's Christine Carrara.
Christine.
Yes.
And what brought you?
Joanne.
Oh. Well, perfect.
So I've been doing genealogy for about 7-8 years, and Joanne and I were partnered up at Lady Putter's, and it's just like, oh, what are you into? And I said, well, I'm into genealogy, and she goes, well, so am I. I go, oh, fantastic.
This is so fun.
Yes.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Be sure and check out online the different classes and SIGs. Joanne, thank you. Sigurd, okay. I always like to see who the names of the people that I'm talking to, but I don't guarantee when I walk out this afternoon that I'm going to remember your name. But thank you. So welcome, everyone. The meeting, in terms of the business part of the meeting, will go along fairly quickly because we're not going to have reports from every director or chair. And just bear with me because I have to follow the menu. We need to know that you all have read the minutes, and the minutes are always posted online at our website, as well as they're physically tacked to the bulletin board inside of our multipurpose room. I don't need both mics. And so I would need to know, show me your hands if you've read the minutes from the last meeting. Oh, good girl, boy, good girl. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Robert DeLillo made a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Charlie Menino is the second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meeting, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Good. If anyone ever opposed that, I would really be grilling you as to why. just so you know. Our treasurer's report is always reviewed by the board, and we post it online on the website. Our treasurer, believe it or not, has been, well, she's on the road. She's coming back from Montana and over to California and then here. And most of the summer, She's been gone, but she still turns in those treasurer's reports. So we have posted the treasurer's reports for audit. So if you're curious and you want to know what we're doing financially, go online and you can look them up. They're in the archived section for members. Something new that we have to do today. I got to put my president's report. Well, we're not going to do that yet. So hold on. I'm supposed to give a report, and what I can report on since the last meeting is that our member outreach person who emailed me from Turkey the other day, yes, I said Turkey, she's on her way back. But we've done some presentations. Our first vice president, Stephanie Sparks, accompanied me to Sun City West's computer club. And Jerry Johnson, our member, told me, hey, come and do a presentation on WVGS. Mrs. King, Laura King, invited us to come and talk about WVGS, which we did. We walked in and about fell down because there were, I found out later, 190 people in that meeting. They are all part of the Computer West's clubs all throughout Sun City West, and they meet once a month. And so we were able to interact and tell everybody there. I think we've gotten a couple new members from that too. So we want to be good partners with that Sun City West Computer Club. They also teach, they have people that know Ancestry and they help their members with Ancestry. And we want to always make sure that we stay connected with those people. Also, if you've heard of Rio Salada, they're located in Surprise, and they have, well, it's RISE. It's lifelong learning, and they have multiple classes. They have catalogs spring and fall, and I've gone to several classes there, not genealogy classes, just interest classes. And they wanted me to come back and do another presentation. I did one before last winter, and so I went about a week or so ago. And it's interesting because even though there were just 6 people, I talked a little bit about genealogy, beginning, that type of thing, but mostly I showed them online the free websites that you can get to. And I get to them all by using our WVGS website. So it's a way of subtly advertising WVGS, but I thought it was really interesting because even with just a few people, I had one person become a member, another one who actually worked or works in their office and said she knew nothing about WVGS, and she invited us to come to their educational, lifelong learning fair on October 26th to have a table there. She said, we'll set you up. She said, you guys have got to come on over. She said, there's so much that people need to know about, what WVGS offers. So that was exciting because out of just a few people, we ended up with maybe a new member plus another outlet for outreach. I mentioned before publicity was hard going because we don't really have a publicity chair at this time, but Stephanie and I have worked together and we've been able to get ads out for our open house. So if you've seen our ad in any of the independent papers, anything you ever see that's got our name on it, would you please bring it in and leave it with the aides desk, because we keep accumulating these things for our history. So we have the ads for open house. They've been publicized. There's going to be another great big one the week before open house, which is October 29th. And then we're also now working on the ads for the seminar in February. The Allen County Tripp meeting, I believe, Della, we said we were at 11 people, maybe 10 or 11 people that have signed up. They're going to Allen County, Allen County, Fort Wayne, for their research trip. And we're having a joint meeting with all of those travelers, if they can, on October 12th at 10 a.m. I'm also planning to have a volunteer chair and directors meeting on October 11th at 1. That's for any volunteer chair or director, anyone who's a volunteer. It's optional, but I would like to have as many people as possible. All of these things can be done virtually as well, but I need to have everyone on the same page. That's why we try to get together a couple times through the season. And I think Charlie said that he added something to the slide about our e-news. Our e-news editor definitely needs a helper. However, it would be best to contact her personally, directly, because there's some criteria that's necessary, like constant contact. How many of you know what constant contact is? Okay, 3 people. So there, you see? I mean, she showed it to me and I was just, it's like a fog. Okay, but she's very confident. She would like to shift gears a little bit and help out more with our being a co-webmaster, and as soon as she can have some helpers with e-news, then she can do that shift. Okay, next we have the bylaws. Last month, and I have to represent Stephanie on this, Stephanie is traveling, and last month she read to you the new change under our bylaws. It actually says the term limits were in 2019. We added term limits to each board position. The board wanted to regularly add new people who hadn't been board members before. In the circumstances, it was a reasonable change. Bylaws are important and not to be changed lightly, but they also are to support the organization and not hamper its operations. I am not sure, this is Stephanie, because she's part of the bylaw committee, I am not sure we realized how important continuity and having seasoned board members is. The wording change needed is very simple. We are eliminating the 2 sentences that refer to term limits. As you can see, officers and duties. Section C, officers shall serve a term of 2 years beginning in January. And the red is what was crossed off. The terms of official shall be staggered. You were all presented that last month, and this month we need a consensus vote. And so I would be looking for a motion to accept this bylaw change. Can anyone? Peggy Morphew is making a motion to accept this bylaw change. Is there a second? Second, Judy Roosh. All those in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, if you would have had questions, I would have hoped you would have done your questioning of Stephanie and that committee. So thank you. We now are going to hear from the nominations committee, Pat. Pat tomorrow.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Tomorrow, Diana Wittenberg, and Sally Pavia. Where's Sally? She's here. Oh, there she is, waving back there. The 3 of us have been the nominating committee for this year. We've been working since April, and it was a tough go at times, but we found people who were willing to serve. And I can't tell you enough how important it is that all of us get involved in the work of this organization. And we've got some great officers, that, in my humble opinion. For president is Lou McLean. First vice president is Stephanie Sparks. Treasurer will be Jill Mitchell, assisted and backed up by Donna Scott. The director of fundraising will be Sarah Maxwell. Director of technology is Jim Weichel. Director of membership is Gloria Parker, and the director for library services is Sandy Enke, backed up with Chris Palmer, and our director of collections development is Karen Lee. Now, the voting will be online, and we will be sending out an email reminder in the next week or 2. Online voting will begin November 1st and will close on November 10th, and we will announce the results of the election at the November general meeting. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pat. Okay. as I said, I'm wearing Stephanie Sparks' hat off and on today. She is in charge of the Volunteer of the Month. And the Marie Biernick Volunteer Appreciation Award is, I'm going to read this, then you see if you can guess. Stephanie's talked a lot about different volunteer contributions over the last year. This month, we have another longtime volunteer, 29 years to be exact. Her first notice in Tidbits was in October 1994, when she was noted as a new member. Her last notice was last month, as she helped with the nominating committee. Helped with is a term she uses. She doesn't want to be in front of a group. She wants to do whatever needs doing to get a project moving or completed. She's been mentioned in Tidbits 135 times in the years since that first mention. She was on the board more than once, a few years as director of membership, and then many years as director of special projects, and now as co-director of fundraising. She's manned booths at off-site events, kept the mailing list of members until it got computerized, and she's been the info at azwvgs.org for many years. She helped with SIGs as coordinator for many years, with the parking lot sale, with trips, with seminar, and kept the display cases in the library filled with stuff for as long as I've been around. That's what Stephanie said. Me too. I remember seeing all her stuff. She also coordinated Research Night for many years. She's an aide now every chance she gets. I am sure most of you have figured out that we are talking about Sally Pavia. Sally was born in Kansas City, Missouri, but grew up in Long Beach, Lakewood, and finally Whittier, California, where she graduated from high school. Her first job was as a telephone operator, the kind you see in old movies, pulling out cords and connecting calls by getting the cord in the right spot. That's so fun. She got married in 1957, and she and Jerry, her CB husband, raised 3 boys. They moved to Arizona in 1992 to take care of her mom and stayed. She has 1 grandson. She got interested in genealogy in a class at the library in Whittier, but didn't have much time for research until she got to Arizona. Sally is a great storyteller and has been published in Desert Tracker. She also has a signature personal style, a love of all kinds of jewelry, and the willingness to wear any costume, and she's contributed to WVGS for the last 29 years. Thank you so much, Sally. Can you come on up, Sally? Sally's going to get this lovely certificate. You'll see her picture on the wall in the library probably this week sometime. And you can also have these. I thought the mason jar was kind of, I don't know, fun.
Yes.
And this.
Oh,
She gets a coin purse, no coins inside.
Oh, the
And
coins
this is yours
inside.
to hold. This is not mine.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, me? Okay, I'll stand behind. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we're going to have a short tutorial on how to find the obituaries on our website, Diane Wittenberg. We're going to try to do these short tutorials every month so y'all can get familiar with the website. Diane.
We're going to do this with slides rather than actually being on the website. All of you can get into the website, and our obituary database has over 144,000 obituaries. We are going to start a new project shortly where one of our members donated some documents, and we'll be adding thousands more obituaries. It started out being local to Sun City. It's now covered all the states in the United States. We got a project a while back that covered a lot of Utah. So if you think you want to look up an obituary, do it. Don't think just because it's on WVGS that it's specific to Arizona. You may find that one that you don't know about. All you do is you log in to your account on azwvgs.org, and on the top tabs you'll see resources. Just click on that resource and you get a drop-down box that gives you several options. Select obituaries, and then it'll bring you another box, and you will select, the search obituary text or search obituary index. The text, if you search that, you're going to see the same thing you do when you search periodicals. So all the Boolean searches and all that kind of stuff work over there. But we just selected index, and it brought me up to, I could choose someone's name. And I chose this Samuel Johnson. I just typed in Sam. I didn't have to type in the whole Samuel. And whoops, go back one slide. You'll notice on the far right-hand corner, there's some highlighted numerals. That is the code for that page in our database. If you are a non-member, you can do the same thing without logging in, and you get this far, but you don't see that code. Okay, now. Once you select that code, you'll get the page comes up and you'll see the obituary. Then just use your regular, any kind of snippet, cut and paste that you want, and you can cut it out, or you can print the whole page. Okay? Then once you've done that, if you want to order an obituary, as a member you don't need to because you've already got it, but a non-member would go ahead and order it from our database in our store. But if you want to be kind and say, okay, I found some obituaries, I'll give a donation to the library, go ahead and continue the ordering process. But then when you get to the last screen, go ahead. There's a box here that says obit requests fulfilled in library. Click yes on that so that our obituary person knows not to send you a copy of the obituary because you've already gotten it. It's a very simple process, and I hope you all use it. Like I said, we're getting ready to add some more. If you're interested in joining the obituary committee, you can see me at the break if you have any questions about this. We're also requesting that if you have any obituaries that you would like to add to this database before 2017, because most of those are already online, you can contact me or send it to the obits@azwvgs.org email. Any questions? It's quick and easy. Use it. You'd be surprised what you find. Thank you.
Tell everybody how long it took you, the committee, and how long you worked on scanning all
This started way before me. Liz back here would know more about when it started than me. About 1996, she said. It started with Ethel Sanders just going out and cutting these obituaries out of the newspaper. She went with someone and got a free card catalog that you used to see in the library. That was completely full when we started digitizing. Ed Crabb has worked on the database. Jim Weichels helped with the database. It's a very user-friendly database. And like I said, just because your person wasn't from Arizona, you might find that obituary. We've had a lot of people submit obituaries from other states. I know Judy Roche did some from Michigan. Several people did some from Kansas and Missouri. I've done some from Iowa. But all over, and hopefully with this new donation, we'll get more people in. So it's been a long process, fun process for most of us. It's another way to give your time. At one point, we got to the point where we could work from home to do it. We didn't have to be at the library. So there's opportunities for you to do that too. So see Lou if you want to volunteer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. I remember looking under those card catalog little drawer things where they had all these obits. And I can't remember, didn't you guys inherit all these notebooks from the archives, the state archives, where they went and took obituaries and pasted and taped them inside on pieces of paper, like 15 on one page? And this committee had to dissect all that out, take it all out so that they could be scanned. It was a major big project, but thank you so much. Under director's reports, as I said, the registration for seminar is going to begin on November 1st. November is a big, busy month. It's when we have our annual meeting. So be looking for that. We do have it posted as to the speaker. It's on our website. Save the date, look under membership, and you'll see. So we're going to have a short report from Peggy, our fundraising chair, and then we're going to follow that up with Barbara. I like your belt, tie, scarf. Cute.
In case you don't know me, this is supposed to call attention to me so that you can come and buy tickets. Anyway, okay. We've got some new things going. As you can see that there are tea towels and pot holders and those sort of things, and Krista Manu is the one who has created them, and all the proceeds are coming back to WVGS. She's donating it all. We are going to start a different type of raffle beginning this month, and tickets will be $1 each ticket, and it will be a 50-50. So in other words, if we take in $200, the winner gets $100. That's half of the 200. So the more you buy, the more chance you have of winning, and the larger the pot goes. It's sort of like if you can't win if you don't play. The other thing that we're doing this month, and we'll carry it over till November, and that is that we are having a silent auction. The items are in the back, and I know that a e-news was sent out with a picture of the items. All you do is sign your name, sign your bid, and give me an email address. And it's simple, and you can keep, if somebody outbids you, you can go and outbid them. We want you to be as generous as you feel you can, and I think it is something that we can get things that have been donated to us that are difficult to raffle otherwise. There was another thing. Darn. Okay, well, we have books back there for sale. And yeah, look at those hands waving back there. Yeah. And they're very reasonable, and we would appreciate you buying them so we don't have to take them back to the library. Okay? Are there any questions? Yes. Say again?
Baskets? Were we going to do baskets?
Oh, starting in November, we'll be doing a basket raffle. And in November, it will be the Italian SIG donating all of the items. And then you get to buy a ticket, and you get to take home all the good things. And right now I can tell you there's an asset-free album, photo album, asset-free. Some homemade by a priest in Sun City West tomato sauce. There's going to be cookies. There's going to be surprises. There might be, there's wine. Yes, there's some couple of bottles of wine. So it's a really nice basket, and whoever wins it is really going to have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Barbara, our Director of Education, has a few things to report.
Okay, this is going to be fast because I want to make sure you get your break and we have lots of time for the speaker. Okay, the education table is back there. If my daughter would wave her hand so you can see she's back there. This has flyers on our different classes. It has a list of SIGs. We have a new class taught by me on digging deeper in vital records, which will not only look at the different types of vital records, but will teach us how to analyze them and look at them more deeply. Adrienne Haupt is coming back again with her researching in a new area. Lots of hints for doing that. You can really learn a lot from that, so we're glad she's doing that again. We also have Lou's monthly computer website telling people how they can find things on our computers in our computer lab, and I'm forgetting the other one. The novice genealogy, which the other Barb Stenberg teaches, who's sitting right up here, and she teaches that monthly. So check out our table back there. Thank you.
Okay. I can't think of anything else right now, so believe it or not, you all just got comfortable, but you can get up and take a short break. Then we're going to bring back our guest speaker. If you have any questions, you can check out Ask Anybody, any officer. If you don't know who the officers are, then you can seek me out and I'll pass the buck and say, go ask her, go ask there. I just told a lovely lady earlier today, I need to take a library tour because I haven't toured the library in 3.5, 4 years. And when I was in Marana and I moved back here, Chris and Sandy had been busy moving everything around. So hopefully I can do the tour at 11, but their tour and my computer tutorial sort of happens at the same time, but that's okay. But yes, please go back and check out the 50/50 table, go back and check out the silent auction, the books. I think we have some books there by some members who are authors, do we not? Yes. So we will be back here. If it's 1:30, we're going to be back here at approximately 1:45 for our guest speaker coming up. Thank you. She starts at 1:45, so she'll be done by 2:30, but if it goes over, we'll just get out early.
I just wanted to give her, she has
Yeah, about 45 minutes. Okay.
Well, the e-news thing I had on the announcements.
Yeah,
So
that's okay. I got it out there. Thank you.
Sorry,
You can go ahead and open your PowerPoint.
I did.
Okay. And now we go down here to that stand right there. Click that. There you go.
Here we are. We're good. We're super.
Thanks for you.
Well, no, we're good.
This is Beth.
Okay, if you didn't pick up on those lights flashing, the reason they're flashing is we need to get back to our seats and be ready for the speaker.
Okay. Da, 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 da.
Okay, they're flashing again, so this means you're supposed to be in your seats, I guess. We really need you to, so that we can hear. We've got some conversations going, and I've got to get my voice over this. Hopefully our speaker, Denise Beeson, has a really loud voice. Okay. Denise Beeson developed the genealogy program and teaches semester-long classes as an adjunct instructor at Santa Rosa Junior College in Santa Rosa, California. She also teaches short courses in the Lux program at Whittier College, and she participates in, I know she's done a lot of things at Pebble Creek learning program. That's how we learned about her from a couple of our members. She has taught things for the city of Goodyear and Maricopa County Public Library System. She's a member of the Sonoma County Genealogical Society, obviously the Pebble Creek Genealogy Society. We're trying to talk her into being a member here. She holds a Master of Arts in Communications and French and a Bachelor of Arts in, a Master of Arts in Communications and French, and your bachelor's was in speech. And genealogy has been her passion for over 20 years. Our speaker, Denise Beeson, who's going to be speaking to us on religious records, and thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come to speak to you today. I really appreciate it. I'm hopeful that you've had an opportunity to look at census records when you do your genealogy, and you discover, hey, my guy is not in the census record. What do I do? Where do I go? So I want to remind you that the alternate is church records. And so I want to concentrate today on the primary religions in the Western world. And we're a little bit hesitant on the computer today because we have some links that we are going to go to, and we may or may not easily be able to launch. So bear with me on this presentation. So what I want to cover today is just an understanding of the tale of two calendars. Maybe you didn't realize that there were multiple calendars out there, so those dates that you're looking for is going to be a little bit confusing. Ethnic versus religious searches. Type of records that you need to look for. Remember, a record is different than a database, so that records contain multiple databases when we do our research. The ceremonial records that are out there, specifically marriage, birth, and death, and I'm also going to address Judaism as well. If you've not heard of Gretna Green, that was a major issue when your ancestors in England particularly wanted to get married, but maybe mom and dad didn't like the idea. A little bit about how to search, and then records for you to consider, and just general resources that will help you in your research of church records. So again, many of you already know this, so those of you that are new in genealogy, I know you've been concerned that the dates might not always compare to what you think that they should be. That's because January 1st wasn't always January 1st. And so some of us don't realize that there had been two calendars, the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. So again, based on, Julius Caesar's conquering, he had developed a calendar based on the seasons. And so that was a very important part of people's lives, of course, when the sun went up and the sun went down. And so it was then recast when Gregory, the Pope at that time, came on board. He wanted to go ahead and account for more of the natural solar cycle, which has a kind of a spillover of about 10 days. And so he decided that he was going to drop days from the month of October in 1582 and go ahead and add some additional days. And so that's how we got February leap year situation. So if you were not familiar with the fact that your records that you might see in front of you aren't jiving to what you think, then that's possibly what was going on, is that the Gregorian calendar was replacing the information that you were looking for, and that certain nations didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar right away. So what we call this as double dating, not like you did in high school, right? But rather the fact that you will see sometime in the records an OS versus an NS, so the old style versus the new style. And so a good example is Abraham Lincoln, born on the 27th of March, 1741, and his younger sister Ruth, born on the 23rd March of 1741. So again, you can see that it could be written in the record as the old calendar and or the new calendar. Of course, she was born on the same day. It's just recorded a little bit differently. And so again, you have to ask yourself, when did your country, if not America, when did it go Gregorian? And so again, depending upon the country, you may have had a different overview of when that particular thing came into place. So here's George Washington's birthday as an example, in the old calendar versus the new calendar. And of course, it doesn't change the fact that he was born on that particular day. It's just how is it expressed in the record. And so I just want to remind you that January 1st wasn't always the first month of the year. So think about that when you're doing your recording. Now, when we look at international dating, realize that the colonies went ahead and adopted the Julian calendar quite readily. But other countries like Russia, Romania, Yugoslavia, they had various time frames that they adopted the Julian calendar. And so again, if your ancestor was immigrating to America in the 1700s, or possibly a little later, it's possible they could have left Berlin on the 7th of 1909 and had gone to Moscow on the 6th of September in the same year. Kind of odd, kind of odd. So here's the Gregorian calendar versus the countries that adopted the calendar. So when you look at it, you can see the British colonies, and of course Canada and the United States, 1752. And then you have all of the other countries adopting it at different timelines. I want to point out Prussia, 1610, those of you that are looking at Eastern Germany, Austria, 1583. So again, when you're looking at your records, you always want to keep in the back of your mind whether or not January 1st was indeed the first month of the year, or whether it was possibly March time frame. So again, just an important consideration on the Gregorian calendar. Now, we don't want to have to necessarily figure this out all the time. So we have tools that are online. So the Rosetta calendar will automatically convert the Julian number. And we also have Stephen Morris. If you're not familiar with the Stephen Morris website, he also has a conversion. So I'm going to go ahead and, I hope, launch to his site. So it's really easy. All you have to do is go ahead and click on that, and you can see that he will then ask you to put in your different dates, and Stephen Morris can go ahead and help you convert easily. You can also go to the Ian's English calendar if you're more interested in Great Britain and the different areas there. So different countries. You can also point in his calendar, all the different countries. So, oh shoots, it's not showing. My mistake here. Nope, it doesn't want to show us. Let me go ahead and. Well, I'm just going to go on. You can go ahead and have these hot links when you get my presentation. So as a point of information, we all know that for genealogy, our format is usually the day, the month, and a year in your tree, and so that ancestry will automatically convert to that change. And so in the U.S., sometimes we refer to August the 11th, 1928. However, the European records, it's always going to be then November the 11th, then 1928. So again, automatically that transfer will occur in Ancestry. So just want to be sure to make sure that your genealogy format is consistent with the standards in the industry. Now this leads me to a very interesting concept, and some of you might not have thought about when doing your research. Ethnicity had a great deal to do with religious choice. And so your particular family, though maybe you're not religious today, might have been dictated a religion due to the political situation of the time, or the social situation of the time, the economic situation of the time. You know, think about your English history when Henry VIII took over and the Church of England was accepted. So again, thinking about ethnicity is really important when we're looking at religious searches. So the 5 major religions of the world all came on board at differing times. And so you want to identify your particular ethnicity with when the particular religion became prominent in that location. So I'm going to try to get us to this YouTube channel. Yeah, maybe not. Okay, so it's not even letting me copy and paste. Okay, so I'm not getting anything. I'm just getting that whole site. Yeah, we don't want that, but I don't have a choice. You see how it's making me. Yeah. Can you help me at all?
No, we never did get the YouTube to go, or did Jim help you?
I did, yes, I did. I copy it and paste. That's what I get.
Jim? Or Ed? Oh. Ed goes, he's not sure either. I'm sorry. I didn't see how you got it.
Anyway, moving on here, the video that I do show you shows the major religions and how that they geographically impacted over time. And so again, important to understand that the identified country might have dictated the religion of the time. So in Christianity, for instance, you will see Greek Orthodox religion or the Serbian sect, possibly Armenian. And so oftentimes your ancestor, if you've taken a DNA test, for instance, you have noticed a particular ethnicity, and you may want to look at the fact that your ancestors' religious records are in those locations because of the origin of the family originally. Also, let me point out that many people taking genealogy tests today are finding Jewish ancestry quite surprising to them. And so when you do this, you may find traces of your Jewish Hasidic or Ashkenazi or Sephardic, and these were dictated because of the political problems of the time. And so if you are interested in more information, you can look at the Alhambra decree that brought to bear some of the people that you may have in your ancestral tree to different parts of Europe. So when you look at this particular slide, you see migration of settlements of the Spanish Jews, because they were expelled by Ferdinand and Isabella because they wanted to have a Roman Catholic country. So as a Jew in Spain, you had the choice of dying, right? Or you had the choice of living. And so again, that might have been an important consideration on the records that you're going to be looking for, because you might not have thought that they had come from areas that had religious dictates. So on the slide on the left here, you can see the Ottoman Empire in yellow. So if you're interested in Eastern European genealogy, that will show you also areas like, gosh, I didn't know that my ancestors were in Eastern Europe, and oh my gosh, Ashkenazi results in my DNA test. So again, a very, very fascinating type of map here to give you a real good illustration about how ethnicity might impact your religious records. I do want to speak a little bit about Judaism. As you know, it is an important religion in the world, and many of the people that practice Judaism through the maternal line, I want to be sure to bring that to your attention, may or may not espouse Judaism as the religion. So we have to keep in mind that we have records that will have to do with the people ethnically in a location versus the religious records that may have been created because of their Judaism. And so the teachings, particularly of the New Testament, will give you some more information regarding Judaism and their records. And of course, Judaism has no sacraments like we have in the Christian faith, but they do have certain types of ceremonies. Particularly you see the congregate services on the Sabbath, Friday and Saturday, and other events that we're familiar of just simply by living in a diverse country as we do. And so again, Judaism is something that you may want to consider in your research. Some of the Jewish records that are available online to bring to your attention, especially those of you who might not have even thought of this as a possibility, the records at jewishgen.org doesn't necessarily restrict to Jewish records, but all Eastern European records are on this site as well. So various databases are created in jewishgen.org. You have synagogue records. So in the town that your ancestor may have come from, checking those synagogues in those towns may render records for you to review. Of course, cemetery records, immigration records, and then we have some very unusual resource records that you might not be aware of, and those are records having to do with the Holocaust. And so you do have some religious records that are intermingled with the Holocaust Museum in New York. Maybe you have not heard of the term land-manned shaft records. These are the records of the shtetls. So these were Jewish establishments, and they could be in Hungarian or Polish, German, Russian, all different kinds of records out there may be captured in the landsman shaft records. And of course, there are memorial books that are out there. So again, there are a lot of Jewish records that might be available to you. Please don't restrict your search simply by saying, well, I'm not Jewish. Yeah, that could be. However, these sites do have availability of records that would be possibly of interest to you, that would be non-Jewish religious records. And so let's look at specifically the Western religions that we should be considering here. So church records are going to be important in our research because in many cases they will predate civil records. So for instance, Napoleon, he tasked the Catholic Church to keep civil records. And so there were two sets of books, if you will. There were the religious sacramental information from the parishes, but there also was the vital records that Napoleon required the churches to keep. And so make sure that when you're looking at these church records that you study the relationship between the people that you will see in the records. Oftentimes the collateral relationships are witnesses, the officiate, people that may have been present, like in Quaker meeting notes, are important people in our research that we might have overlooked. So let's look at the sacramental types of records that would be available in the Christian faith. We typically look at this as a liturgical event. Sometimes it's referred to as ecclesiastical in the records. And so we see that there are sacraments or opportunities for you to claim faith or grace. So depending upon your belief structure, there is certain attributing characteristics, positive characteristics, if you participate in these sacraments. And so baptismal oftentimes is used in place of a birth record. Okay, please be aware that birth records are vital records held in the jurisdiction, but sometimes the baptismal record is going to be more important to a religious family than the vital record. So in the case of my family, my father always celebrated his baptismal day as his birthday. And so you may also have that kind of a cultural predisposition in your research. Marriage, again, is an opportunity for God to bless the union. And burial, there are specific rites, last rites of burial that you also will want to look at. But I want to be sure to emphasize that the vital records versus the liturgical event are two different things. And so don't confuse a jurisdiction in a government requirement having the record versus your church that is going to have the record. On the right-hand side, you can see the handwritten entries in a church register. Kind of hard to read in many cases, but it is a record that the priest, the minister, the rabbi, whomever is tasked with that in that congregation is going to enter the important things, major events that was occurring to your ancestor. And so, as I mentioned, many of the church registers are going to predate vital records that were required by governments. Also, make sure that you don't just stop at the sacramental level, but look at the fact that there are a lot of other records that we kind of don't think about today. Did you know that there were pew rental records? So that you actually bought your seat in the church, or I should say rented your seat in the church. The record of the rabbi or the minister that may have been visiting the sick. Maybe the death and burials of various members of the church could be noted somewhere else. There could have been a listing of marriage bans, records of pilgrimages that the congregation might have gone into. There could have been annulments. So there may have been a time, of course, divorce was not allowed, so that there would have been an annulment recorded. Maybe the church membership list. Maybe there was a transfer of a person going from one congregation to another congregation. This was very important in colonial America. So in order for you to move in colonial America, you needed to have a letter from your minister to allow you to move into that other town. And so that might have been an opportunity for you to find their names. Also, when we look at the record, we might see maiden names, ages or dates of birth. One of the things I find that's rather interesting is looking at a baptism announcement, whether or not it was a legitimate birth, meaning the parents were actually married to each other, or if it was a natural birth, child came a little early, right? And so that is a tip. When you see a baptism announcement, you will actually see in the record if the child was legitimate or if the child was natural. Witness and other types of people listed may be in the record, and also may be listed where did they live before or birth country. And that might be of a help to you. So again, these are some things that maybe we didn't think about when looking at our research. Now, on a more general basis, please consider the historical or archival record of the church of interest. So I discovered that my maternal line actually established the church on the Gaspé Peninsula. There were 7 families that established St. Peter's Church. And I only found this out by going to the website for the church and look at their historical documents on their website. So those church histories might be really helpful. Also, many religions have their own newspapers, so that you might find not only an ethnic newspaper, but a religious newspaper that would give you information about what was going on in that church. Many churches had aligned women and men's organizations. My mother was an ardent member of the Altar Society, right? My father was 4th degree Knights of Columbus, right? So these were various organizations that were affiliated with the religion. And so do look at other types of records maybe you hadn't thought about in the past that could also give you information about your ancestor. So let's talk for a moment about ceremonial events. Again, this is ceremonial events based on sacramental designation. In other words, an individual received grace on some level or recognition by God on taking advantage of this particular ceremonial event. I want to caution you that some of the denominations, due to privacy concerns, will not allow you to get your hands on these records. So just be aware, there's no FOIA document available on the church record status like there is in the vital records, but just be aware that that might be a problem when you're looking at some of these records, because they consider themselves the church custodian of the sacramental records. So let's talk about each of these sacraments in detail. So when we talk about baptism in Christianity, most of us are familiar with a child or an infant's baptism. Usually it is not having to do with their volition of the sacrament, but rather the parents go ahead and make sure that a child is baptized. Make sure that you understand that the infant baptism is not a birth event. It's not a vital record. If your ancestor was heavily invested in their church, they had a dictate on when the child was to be baptized. So if the child was born during the week, in the Church of England, the Episcopal Church, it was dictated that that following Saturday you must baptize your child. If you were of the Lutheran Church persuasion, you had 3 calendar days to get your child to the baptismal fount. Now, the problem here is if you didn't make the prescribed timeline, there was a big danger that your infant would die, and oh my gosh, they would go to limbo. This is not a dance that we learned in the 60s, okay? So this little picture over on the right there shows limbo. It's souls that for whatever the reason have not been baptized, so they cannot fully experience grace. Whatever your religious belief is at this point is immaterial. It's just important that you know that this was a really deterrent for parents, and that you really got your children to the church to be recorded that they were baptized in the faith that was important to the family. And so again, if your census records aren't coming through to you, then maybe you have a baptism record, because boy, if those parents did not baptize their child, they were in big trouble. The minister came to your door, the priest came to your home, they heard about the baby being born, you better get that child into the church. Some of the other things that are important for you to understand is that many cases before the 1800s, these were handwritten. So you may have a lot of great information in that parish that you're researching or not. Okay, so up to the pastor to provide that information. Do look at FamilySearch.org for those handwriting tips, because when you're looking at handwritten information, it might be very distracting and you might not understand what you're looking at, such as the double S. Thank goodness 1812, we have a pre-printed form coming our way, so that at least we have some standardization on what the church was going to be reporting. In some cases, you're going to have that the wife's maiden name is used as the middle name of the infant. So make sure that you review name patterning in your country of origin. So depending upon what the name patterning would dictate, that baptism certificate may look a little bit unusual because you never knew them by their baptismal name, but you knew them more by the name every day that you used. But because of name patterning, they may have been dictated as certain format at the baptismal font. In the case of my ancestry, I'm French Canadian, all of the girls were baptized with the first name Marie. Okay, some of you may have already seen that as well. All of the men were Jean-Baptiste. I never knew my grandfather by Jean-Baptiste, right? And so they oftentimes would go by their middle name. So do consider the fact that you're looking for a baptism record that may look different than what you're thinking it would be. Make sure you also pay attention to the calendar change, as I've already mentioned. Oftentimes baptismal information has occupations, and so important piece of information that may also be there on the baptism document. Now, there are various rites of passage in various religions. In the Christian faith, we typically look at confirmation as a sacrament. The idea here is that the Holy Spirit recognizes a young boy, a young girl moving into adulthood. And we also are familiar with the bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah ceremonies in the Jewish faith. So again, these are other records that you might consider looking for that are rites of passage. So now let's talk about marriage records. So you need to think about marriage records around about 4 different areas of interest. So the marriage bond, the marriage announcement, a ban, and the marriage certificate versus a marriage license. So you just can't jump into the records and hope for the best. You got to know what you're looking for, right? And so in colonial America particularly, young men were requested to fill in a marriage bond, kind of an insurance policy. You love my daughter. How much do you love her? All right. How much money are you going to ensure this potential union? What do you have to show for it, right? And so the marriage bond was a requirement, especially in colonial America. I do not see marriage bonds in foreign countries, but I do in colonial America. It was their intention to marry. On the right-hand side of the slide there, you will see the marriage bond and what it looked like in North Carolina. The marriage announcement, okay, this was a very important thing that the church took very seriously. It didn't want cousins marrying first cousins, okay? It didn't want stepmothers marrying stepsons, right? And so there were very rigid laws that were in place by the Christian faith and the Jewish faith to make sure that monitoring of the consanguineous relationships, the mingling of blood here, was not going to be occurring. Sometimes we refer to that as inbreeding, right? And so the church was kind of the dictate as to how this was going to be handled. And so the church then would announce from the pulpit 3 consecutive Sundays who was intending to marry whom. And so this was to avoid anybody maybe getting away with the, new wife, the new cute young thing from the next village over, right? And if there were any possible issues having to do with the bride or the groom, somebody that heard they were marrying could stand into the church and say, hey, I know of such and such and should not be getting married to each other. So gave public awareness. Now, this obviously was a law that was circumscribed quite a bit. And you know this because royalty often, due to political favors, married first cousins, right? And so the church did look away often for these kinds of things. And then, of course, you might have also heard of the Kennedys. Rose Kennedy and Joseph Kennedy were first cousins. They had to ask the Diocese of Boston if they could get married in St. Patrick's Cathedral. And so for a price, right, this could obviously be remedied. So again, don't be surprised if you see a marriage record or some type of kind of, gosh, how come, this was happening? Well, perhaps they paid their money in order for them to get married. And so you will find dispensation records, as they're referred to, in some databases. So again, look for that situation as a marriage announcement. And up until approximately the 1980s, these marriage announcements were still considered required on the part of some congregations. Now, I don't want you to confuse a marriage certificate by a marriage license. Marriage certificates were granted by an officiate of a religious denomination. So you were married by a minister who was Pentecostal or Baptist, or you were married by a Roman Catholic priest. Well, they went ahead and offered you a certificate. Didn't necessarily mean that they had the legal authority or license authority to marry you. So it might seem like a very subtle difference here, but it is extremely important. How many of you have your real ID? Raise your hand. Your real ID, little corner of your driver. Okay. Well, those of you that have not gotten your real ID yet, I want to point out that you need to show a marriage license. So when I went to go get my real ID, I carried my marriage certificate into the DMV. The guy at the DMV said to me, "Lady, this isn't worth the paper it's written on." I said, "Well, wait a minute, I've been married over 40 years. Come on. I've been living in sin all this time, He goes, "No, you have to go to the jurisdiction where you got married and buy a marriage license." I said, "Oh, please." He goes, "Well, I can't give you a real ID unless I see a marriage license." So I marched down to my jurisdiction. I paid my $35 and literally bought the seal for my marriage license, because that is what they would be requiring. So word of caution out there, those of you that only have marriage certificates, this might be the time to bail. I don't know. But I just want to be sure that you are aware that there is a difference between a marriage certificate, which is a ceremonial event by a church, versus a license from a jurisdiction. Now, in colonial America, many of our ancestors here were Quakers. Quakers did not have marriage records, baptismal records, or any type of death records. What they did was declared their commitment to each other at a Quaker meeting. So you're really lucky if you have Quaker heritage, because you can then go to the meeting notes and see who was there. Just great information. Everybody that attended the meeting that day, whether they're relations or not, are going to be recorded in the meeting minutes. So again, that might be an opportunity for you to see the entire community that partook in the meeting to declare the marriage between the couple. Now, many of the people that wanted to get married might not have been able to get married because of mom and dad or being too young or whatever the barrier is going to be. And so what we see then is a term that you may or may not be aware of, and that's called Gretna Green. Now, what is Gretna Green? There are two great videos here that I'll let you go ahead and look at in your leisure here, but it was actually a town on the border of England and Scotland. During the 1700s, many priests were imprisoned because of religious dissent, and in order to get money while in prison, they offered to marry couples that parents or their particular situation, a baby is on the way, wasn't going to allow a church wedding. And so this designation called Greta Green came out, and so then Greta Green marriages in England found their way to America. And you've all heard of Las Vegas. And so again, you could go drive through, you can dress up as Elvis and Priscilla Presley, you can do anything you want in Las Vegas and you would have a Greta Green marriage. And so many couples did do this in various marriage mills throughout the United States. And so you might want to look for a Greta Green marriage, and if you go to the Ancestor Academy, they have a good understanding of what Greta Green is, and also the marriage mills that we see in Las Vegas and throughout the United States. So you will have a copy of this presentation, so please think about going to these two sites that I can't launch today. Now, the final stop, if you will, in life, the last rites, that ceremonial activity is done differently in various religions. And so again, depending upon your denomination, the commendation of the dying, as it is called in some Christian faiths, may provide an apostolic pardon. In other words, the priest, the minister, whomever is attending from your congregation could allow you to confess your sins, and therefore you would then be able to find your way to heaven immediately. Now, in the case of the Catholic Church and or Episcopal Church, the term extreme unction has been adopted, meaning the final anointing. This is when the priest, Episcopal or Roman Catholic, comes to your bedside, anoints your forehead and your extremities with salt and with oil. In some cases, you are not able to give your final confession, so this is a way for the pardon of your sins, and your speedy ascent into heaven would be occurring. And so the last rites is something for you to consider. Now, some of the burial records and or databases you may find in the record may give you information about the death, and it's important to know that where somebody died doesn't necessarily mean that that death would have been registered there. Okay, so think about times of war, times of disaster. So people may have died in certain locations, and the body then was brought back to the home location for the burial. And the religious event then would be occurring several days, weeks, months, and even years later. So important for you to understand that. Now, many of our churches had grave sites or cemeteries adjacent to the church itself. Obviously, this became an impractical situation as congregations grew. So then the minister, the rabbi, the priest went to a commercial location and blessed the ground so that their particular their parishioners could be buried in sacred ground, blessed by the church that they were a member of. And so do realize that this is a real estate transaction. You might not have considered that, but cemeteries are commercial properties. A cemetery would have gone to a county recorder to record the deed of the cemetery. The cemetery then would be designated in subplots, and those subplots then would be sold to families for burial sites, such as family plots. And so you might not have thought about looking for a real estate deed when you are thinking about burial plots, but it is a legal transaction through the cemetery. also consider a funeral home is also a mortuary. In many cases, the congregation that your ancestor was a part of aligned themselves with mortuaries of like faith. And so the parish, the cemetery, and the mortuary or funeral home all hailed that particular religious denomination. So if you do find that your ancestor was a member of a certain congregation, you will want to see whether or not the mortuary or funeral home and or cemetery were all aligned, because that would be like bingo. You know, you could get a whole lot of records all at one time. And so you want to look to see whether or not you have a dedicated mortuary cemetery to the parish of interest. Also, do review the custom of the time versus today's burial customs. I have an illustration on the left-hand side called a prayer card. Many congregations generated a prayer card upon the death of someone. And in my family, I had a prayer card for an individual lady who I had no idea who she was. And when I did a little bit of research, her picture was on the other side with a prayer, and then on the front was this picture here. And I traced her granddaughter, and her granddaughter said to me it was the very first time she ever saw a picture of her grandmother. So these prayer cards could be very insightful as to what is it that you might be looking for. And so again, I want to bring your attention to the customs that different denominations may have around burial. Now, I don't think that this talk is complete without discussing death certificates. The vital records, as I've mentioned several times now, is not a ceremonial record. Okay? And so the vital record is actually the legal document that a government is going to ask someone to file upon their death. So you can have a death certificate or a copy of a death certificate, and there's a very big distinction. So a death certificate for about $35 is available at the jurisdiction that the person died at. And that jurisdiction is selling you the stamp. It does not have an obligation to fill in all of the blanks. It's a manual fill-in in most jurisdictions. And as I say, many people need a certified copy to claim insurance records or to claim bank account information, inheritance, etc. So usually we request 10 or 12 death certificates from the mortuary. For just genealogy purposes, I would suggest you request a death certificate, and it doesn't have to have the stamp from the jurisdiction. It, in most cases, will be the most complete record of the death, because all they are going to do is pluck it from the file and copy it and either email it or mail it to you, and it's usually at a no fee. Okay? So you really want to think about, do you need a death record or do you need a death certificate? And so again, important piece of information here. Also, I want to just point out as an aside, some interesting things you will see on a death certificate. Again, this is a vital record. This is not a ceremonial record. One of the things that you will see on a death certificate that I feel is really overlooked is the circle on the right-hand side with a 3-digit number. Everybody see the circle with 126? 126. Most death certificates are going to show you the cause of death. And this is a part of the international classification of death indices that is organized and maintained by the World Health Organization. Went into being in the late 1800s to record throughout the world why people died. Okay, so it could be plague, it could be war, whatever, but there is a number attached to how somebody dies. And every 10 years, the classification is upgraded. Now, if your ancestors died in the 1800s, the terminology is going to be very different than what it would be today. So, for instance, many women, after 10, 12 children, suffered from depression. I can't imagine, right? And so her husband wanted a new young thing, and he decided to put her away at an asylum because she obviously was very depressed. The terminology then would be melancholia. Okay, and so today we would call it what? Postpartum depression, right? After 12 kids, come on, right? So anyway, the classification of diseases is going to be important on the website wolfain.com that I've pointed out here, because I think it's very interesting to understand the context of the person's death, because you may find in the classification index that there is going to be a lot more information for you to glean. Also important to know that in church records, they are simply lifting from other records information that is going to be on their form. Right? So that there's not necessarily going to be a monitor or someone to cross-check the information on a ceremonial record. You really are going to hope that the pastor, the minister, whomever was at the official burial has the correct information on the death record. So important to understand that the code might be noted on the death record in the jurisdiction that it was filed, but again, the death record at the particular church may not have a lot of information as to the surrounding events of the person's death. So that ICD code might be helpful or not. I'm going to leave that up to you, but I did want to mention it. So some of the things that I just want to throw in here for you to consider is understanding church records, because the hierarchy of each church is going to be important for you to learn about. And today we have a lot of churches that have been consolidated due to the lack of membership. Some churches have closed, other churches have burned. Flooded, document destruction does occur, whether it's in the vital records area or in ceremonial records. So just be sure that you are aware of that. Do look for Ancestry.com, particularly now including school records. So again, that might be a clue that you had not considered. Protestant denominations sometimes have annual books that are then referred to regional oversight. And so that may be a record that will show whether your ancestor paid their tithe and whether or not that church was viable. Also, I want to point out many of the colleges and universities in the world, particularly in the United States, are religious based. So I went to Whittier College, and it is a Quaker institution. And so if you're looking for Quaker records, you can go ahead and go to Whittier College. You can see firsthand those meeting notes. So think about William and Mary and other colleges and universities in the United States that are religiously rooted, and you may find records of your ancestor there. Also, I want to point out that there are international family books, particularly in Western Europe. In Germany, it's called a Familie Buch. I have a terrible German accent. But in French, Livre de Famille, in Italian, Libro de Familio. These are books of village life, and low-lying civil servants with the pastor or the minister of the village kept these books. And they would be like, hey, the weather is good today, it's a great harvest, and we had 4 children baptized in our local parish. Okay? And so family books can be extremely helpful in your review of your records for your ancestor. There are actually family books in Korea, in Russia, Japan, China. So again, these are long historical overviews of what was going on in a village, including ceremonial records as well as vital records. So again, that may be an important consideration. So when we start looking into our databases, I want to be sure to ask you to consider looking at card catalogs or the collections area of Family Search or WorldCat or Ancestry or any of the other commercial sites that are available out there, so that you could find many more data points about your ancestor by putting in Roman Catholic in a location, or Lutheran in a location, or Baptist in a location. Jurisdiction is important for you to find out. So find out where are the records held by calling the diocese, calling the parish, calling the church, finding out where do they keep their records. Look at the search terms that you're looking. Please do not just put in a surname and hope for the best, right? Find the location and the denomination for you to get the information you're looking for. So in Ancestry or Family Search, whether it's the card catalog or the research wiki, you can find quite easily if there are church records that have been digitized. It's always important to carry with you, either on a piece of paper, in your phone, or on your computer, the key information, so you're not always scrambling to find the dates or the places of the birth, the baptism, marriage, death records. And also don't forget the additional records that may be out there, specifically newspapers, which is where you see a lot of the obituaries, can be very helpful. So just consider these key facts when you're going to go ahead and search. Now, in my handout to you today, the blue links will launch you to these different collections. And so first and foremost, do realize that most church records have not been digitized. Let me repeat, most church records have not been digitized. Therefore, you need to find somebody on the ground that's going to go to the church and look through them for you. You need to make a road trip to the parish or the location of interest. But please do not expect that the records and the databases accordingly will be digitized. The chances are they will not be. However, if you go to the Collections tab in Ancestry and put in the key denomination, you may find sections of different countries have been digitized in most recent time. And so again, that might be a consideration. In the United States, in Family Search, the Research Wiki has all of the church records by state. And so if you have a church record of interest and you know the religion, you can go into the religion and all the church records that have been digitized will be noted for you. So then at least you know, does the record exist or not? So that's very helpful. And again, I apologize, I can't launch to the site today. Here's some other resources that I'll have to share with you. There's actually a book, remember, an old book, How to Find Your Family History in the United States Records, a Genealogist's Guide, came out in 2019, very helpful. WorldCat, if you're not familiar with WorldCat, if you remember when you were in high school and you had to do that term paper, that big box in the middle of the library had the long skinny boxes, and you used to go through that with your hands. Remember that? Well, all of that now is online at WorldCat. So worldcat.org will give you an understanding whether or not there is a library that might have digitized records in the ceremonial events that you're interested in. There's actually an organization called the Association of Religious Data Archives. I've given you the link there, and you can go ahead and check whether or not that particular denomination has considered digitization of their records and presented it under the association umbrella. Archive Grid is another online catalog that will list a lot of different records having to do with denominations. So again, finding the denomination book that has been digitized could be a big help. Do not expect to go into a collection and simply put in a surname and hope for the best. It's not going to happen. Chronicling America, as you know, is the largest free newspaper database. It goes from 1777 to 1963. You can put in the information that you're looking for, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Boston, Massachusetts, in a time frame, and you can find out if there is any newspapers digitally available to you online. Don't forget those ethnic newspapers. That's where you're going to see a lot of information regarding BMD, birth, marriage, and death information. For Jewish records, I want to be sure to point out, don't think, oh, I'm not Jewish. Okay? These are extremely helpful if you have Eastern European interest. And so you can go to the online category that's listed there, the Jewish Genealogy Society, and the best site that I love is jewishgen.org, because jewishgen.org is just a plethora of information for you to look at how the records are handled, and there is actually volunteer assistance online for you. These are some burial records that would indicate religious sites. So Find a Grave, Billion's Grave, I'm sure you're all familiar with these as well. Maybe not so much Intermet, okay? Those are a lot of family plots that are noted. If you have a military person in your history, there is a VA locator. Now, why would this be helpful? Well, because you would have available their CMSR, the Consolidated Military Service Record, which would indicate their history in the service, and it would indicate their religious affiliation. So if you're not sure whether or not somebody was fill in the blank, they would have declared that on their CMSR, because they would want the priest, the rabbi, the minister to administer to them if they were sick or infirmed or there was a problem or burial information necessary. Another one is Names in Stone. If you've not heard of that, that is a database of kind of obscure cemeteries. Okay, so that you might have family plots on farms. You may have small communities of maybe 1,000 people, and they have their own cemetery. So in my experience, Names in Stone tend to have smallish cemeteries. Now, you have perhaps the location where your ancestor died, but you have no other information. There is a funeral home index at Legacy. And so you can plug in the location, and Legacy can tell you whether or not there is a funeral home in that immediate area that might have taken the burial information. So, in conclusion, I wanted to be sure to emphasize, does the record exist? Okay? And for a lot of our ancestors, especially as we go back really far in history, there is not going to be a ceremonial record. Okay? Just be happy if you find something. Make sure that you create your timeline. That will direct your search to decide whether or not there is a record or not, and make sure you note your timeline. Is it the Julian calendar, the Gregorian calendar, or was there a country calendar at the time of your research need? Learn about the church so that the archival information, the historical information of the church may give you a lot of information about your ancestor and if there are records or not. Review the record either online or on hard copy closely so that you can look at who was the officiate, who was the witness, who gave the information to whomever, who were the witnesses at the marriage ceremony. If it's a Quaker situation, who were at the meeting that was held by the particular Quaker society there. And of course, be sure to record your information so that you can go back to where you've been and review the information. Most records are routinely coming online as we speak. So you might have done this research a couple of years ago or even last month, and sure, there's going to be new records today. So always go back to where you found information and or the new databases that are out online, but be sure to record in your research log where you've been and where you need to go next. So thank you again, and please, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'd be happy to help you in looking for church records. Thank you. We do?
We have time for 1 or 2 questions. Please make your questions brief, and please make them not so detailed that you're asking about a particular person in your family or something.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to return to your comments about the death certificate and note that they're only as good as the informant because the informant was whoever was present when the person died, and they said, well, what do you know about your grandmother and who were her parents and so on and so on.
Who knows?
And so don't treat those as gospel when you see them. They're just a clue.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Second question from anyone?
Yes, question? Yes, if you just simply go to Ancestry.com or FamilySearch.org or Find My Past or My Heritage or Geonet, the 5 largest commercial family tree makers and databases for genealogy, they all have Greta Green entries. So if you're interested in the English records, My Heritage or Find My Past is the first place for you to go. If you're interested in U.S. records, Greta Green, FamilySearch.org or Ancestry.com to the card catalog and look at all of the Greta Green records that are there. It will not come up as a Greta Green if you put in somebody's surname into the collection.